Yes, sir. The recording's in progress. Remember to turn your mics on up there too.
Good to go? Good morning, Sue. Welcome. It is now 9 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting of the WIFA Board with a roll call for member attendance. I will call the roll. David Beckham. Ted Cook. Here. Buchanan Davis. I'm here. Patrice Horseman.
Present.
Pete Kim. Richard Lunt.
Present.
Sue Montgomery.
Here.
Tim Tamir.
Here online.
Jonathan Lyons. Soy Joe. Now calling non-voting members. Tom Bushatsky.
Colin Wilgenstall for Tom Bushatsky.
Thank you, Colin. Ray DeCiccio. Gail Griffin. Lauren Cuby. Karen Peters.
Present.
Robin Said. TJ Shope. Stephanie Stahl-Hamilton. And Sandra Watson. Roll call is complete. We do have a quorum.
And Mr. Chair, I will note that Ray DeCiccio is present virtually online and Mr. Beckham just joined us.
Okay. Welcome, David.
Welcome.
And welcome, Ray. All right, roll call is complete. For the record, please remember to identify yourself when making a motion or requesting to speak. Please ensure you are unmuted for any votes. For those in the room, please remember to leave your microphones on the table for sound quality purposes. In addition, if any board member wishes to depart the meeting at any time, please announce your departure for our recorded meeting minutes. Agenda item number 2, disclosure conflicts of interest. Has WIFA staff received any disclosures, Joe?
Morning, Joe Satelli, General Counsel. No disclosures have been submitted for today's meeting.
And I would just remind board members that if they see a conflict of interest as we proceed through the meetings, to please declare it at that time. Let's see, we'll go to the director's report. Director McGuire, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Everybody, welcome back to the WIFA offices. Appreciate your attendance and your work today. Pretty quick report on my end. Did want to note, and I believe we talked about this in the Long-Term Augmentation Committee meeting, but just reiterating for the record, amendment number 5 to the solicitation for long-term water augmentation has been posted. That amendment is available online. Multiple sections and offer forms were revised by that amendment, purely administrative, clarifying language, formatting, and numbering corrections. I will note, however, that as a part of that amendment, a new solicitation schedule was included, or I should probably say modifications to the solicitation schedule was included. That is also available on our webpage. So just noting that for the record and for the board to know where we are. Do anticipate the need for a future amendment, so be on the lookout for that in the next couple of weeks. I'd also then like to throw it over to Lindsay to talk about an exciting new development on the projects team. Lindsay?
Thank you, Director McGuire. So I'm just excited to announce that we are working towards getting fully staffed here at WIFA, which we're very excited about. But one of those steps was to hire Amanda Overholt back there as our new grant coordinator. So we're really excited to have her join the team. She's coming to us from ADWR, really going to be a great resource for us, has already hit the ground really running, which is really great, especially since we just closed an application cycle for water conservation grants and are working to get materials ready for the committee and the board for the new 14.1 million. So really excited to have that finalized.
Well, thanks, Lindsay, and welcome, Amanda and Colin. I'm sorry, but not really. And then finally, I will just round out the director's report with a quick legislative update. We are, of course, well and truly into the thick of the legislative session by now. House Concurrent Resolution 2016, which I have reported about to this board in the past, is a concurrent resolution that states support for WIFA, specifically report for reinstatement of our fund when the budget makes that plausible. Also, kind of the other side of that concurrent resolution that WIFA has been very clear, especially in committee meetings and meetings with legislators, is that though the concurrent resolution is an expression of support on behalf of the legislature and a commitment on their side, there's also a commitment on WIFA's side for that concurrent resolution as well. And that commitment is to bring the legislature tangible information, tangible projects that they can wrap their heads around, wrap their hands around, And we're very excited about the support that we're seeing for that. There's clearly a lot of buy-in for that. The current status of that resolution, it passed the House with bipartisan support and opposition. So, we knew that was going to come on both sides. Currently, it's moving through the Senate very well. It had passed Senate Natural Resources and Senate Appropriations, also with bipartisan support in both of those in both of those committees. I appreciate the work that Judah, our legislative liaison, has done in really hitting the pavement on that particular concurrent resolution. I do also want to flag for you House Bill 2737. This is not WIFA's bill. This was a bill that was dropped as a striker in the House. WIFA is currently neutral on the position or neutral on the legislation, and we are monitoring it. We don't necessarily know the genesis of this bill. We don't know the impetus behind this bill, but what it would do is revise the definition of water supply development. So that's a definition that's used, of course, on our water supply development revolving fund, but also on our long-term augmentation fund. That's a critical definition there. Would revise that definition to include eligibility for a remediation project that has been approved by the EPA if that remediation project increases the availability of water. We haven't had a chance to sit down with the sponsor yet. We are still trying to pin him down and make sure we have that conversation. But we anticipate, and he has said publicly, so I don't feel like I'm putting words in his mouth by saying this, but the idea behind that would be like a mining cleanup, right? An operation mining cleanup, and there's a remediation aspect to that, being able to fund a remediation aspect to that through our programs. So again, we're neutral on the bill. We're monitoring that until we learn more information and can take an affirmative position one way or another, but did want to flag that since it's directly applicable to our statutes. With that, happy to answer any questions on director's report or legislative update.
Any questions? All right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Item number 4, agenda item number 4, Ted Cook, Director Cook, please lead that discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On March 5th, a couple of weeks ago, the Long-Term Water Augmentation Committee had a meeting, and during that meeting, we had an opportunity to review a report from staff detailing the evaluation of the initial qualification submittals that were received in response to WIFA's solicitation for procurement. And those submittals, I think, were due on January 6th or thereabouts, so just to give you a benchmark for the timing. Because that report from staff and the contents were confidential, the committee viewed the report in executive session, and that report will remain confidential until the procurement closes. So I won't spend a lot of time on this, but we all know about the confidentiality and the reasons, therefore, of this during this procurement cycle. And most of us are used to a procurement cycle that is a bid for a specific thing that goes out and you get responses and it's relatively short. This is a much longer one because we are soliciting for lots of potential types of projects and it's a longer period of time. So it seems like we're waiting and there's not a lot of public information, but that's just because of the nature of the project. The next public information regarding the solicitation will be available when the offers are submitted by qualified teams, and that's currently anticipated to happen on May 8th. Chelsea already covered the amendment number 5 and the possible upcoming amendment, so I won't go there. As I did at the committee meeting, I really would like to thank everyone who's responded to the solicitation and the public again for all of your patience while we go through this complex and at this point seems long. But we're all on this board and in the committee convinced that that this process is going to bear fruit and it will be worth the wait. Let's put it that way. I also would like to thank the committee members themselves, which is all WIFA board members, not all of them, but all the committee members are WIFA board members. Outstanding team. They did amazing work, and this is one of the best experiences I've ever experienced working with a board like this. The committee is dedicated to being transparent as possible, as I said, within the confines of this competitive and confidential procurement process. Finally, the committee also heard at our March 5th meeting from the staff about the need. Some of you will recall that there are really kind of 3 main streams to this whole water augmentation solicitation process. One is the solicitation itself, one is the permitting and NEPA process, and another one is working with potential off-takers. So on that last topic, we heard from the staff about the need to really kind of get going. There was some work that was done to provide some some estimates that happened last year and even earlier than that. We need to pick that back up again, and so a resolution was adopted by the committee giving staff specific instructions about what needed to be done and to initiate an off-taker, a public off-taker process. Mr. Chair, that's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Cook. We'll go to agenda item number 5, Denise Olson, federal funding update.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So today I want to give the board an update on all the activities that have been happening at the federal level in terms of impacting WIFA's financial position. And we've had a few hurdles. First, we had the executive order that was issued in January pausing disbursements. We've made it over that hurdle, and we've been able to process all disbursements beginning the first week of February. Then we face the potential of a potential shutdown. This is nothing new. Government seems to be contemplating a shutdown every year. But as of last week, both the House and the Senate passed a continuing resolution that's provided WIFA funding through the end of the federal fiscal year, which is the end of September. However, there is still one hurdle out there, which is the threat to take away taxes and financing in order to extend the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Acts. So we are still analyzing that hurdle and what that would mean for WIFA. So if you go to the next slide, what I've done, and I'm going to tell the board that, and Chelsea knows this, I've changed my mind on this every single day, what we do about this problem. So bear with me. We'd love to hear the board's impact on this subject. So I want to alert you to the fact that we'll be asking for input at the end of this conversation. So just want to remind the board, we do have an approved financial plan. In that financial plan, we had some assumptions. First was we would have $190 million of cash disbursements. We were planning for a bond sale of $50 million in 2026. And we did have some pretty, what we thought, conservative assumptions on grants, which was about $84 million in 25, which is still probably realistic. $37 million in 26 and 27, and then bringing it down to the base grants in the out years, which is about $11 million. If we look at the forecast today and we update that, now, of course, cash disbursements are still lagging. We've been talking about this. I'm projecting $122 million this fiscal year. That means we have more cash on hand. Bond sale, I'm still looking at July of 2026 for $50 to $100 million. And then as far as grants, I've only assumed what we have in grants through fiscal year 25. I've taken all other grant monies out. So we ran that. I'll show you that bar chart in a minute. Then the second thing is, do we issue debt to try to hedge against tax-exempt financing going away? So if we did that, we would issue debt in July of 2025. Again, looking at amounts $50 to $100 million. And we'll talk about the pros and cons of that transaction. So if we go to a bar chart, always have to have a bar chart. So this is where we are today. The bars are quarters, and they represent how much cash on hand we have. You can see we've got over $250 million right now. The green line shows you what our disbursements are going to be. You can see, of course, the green has been pretty low, but we do anticipate it going up in future quarters. We do have, one thing we know is we have over $500 million of commitments outstanding. So we know those disbursements are coming. We just don't know when, but they are coming. So keep that in mind. So based on what we think the pattern is going to look like, we are barely going to make our reserve of $50 million in July of 26, which is when we anticipated a bond sale. So this is where we are today. I do not have a bond sale reflected in those numbers. So I just want to make that clear. So if we look at what's going on with tax-exempt financing, if you go to the next slide, let's just revisit that issue a little bit more so I can explain the impacts here. We issue tax-exempt debt. There's a big difference in the interest rate, right? And some people, it's between 160 basis points versus 210 basis points. And so and I actually engaged Bill, our financial advisor, he's helping me with this. But when we looked at February, the difference between those two numbers, we think that it cost us about $560,000 annually if we had to issue taxable bonds. Okay, so that's significant. Now it could be higher, it could be less. One thing I've included on this graph is there's a chart on the bottom that shows you the spread between those two interest rates. So sometimes it's close, sometimes it's far apart. So these are estimates. The other thing is take in consideration that our current loan portfolio, our interest rate of all of our borrowers is about 2.8%. So if the tax exempt bonds went away, our interest rate would be very low. We would be issuing debt at a taxable rate, which means we would have to then charge our borrowers a higher interest rate on their loans. So that's kind of what this means. The other thing that's coming from the industry is the impacts of getting rid of tax exempt financing really hurts the little guys, the little communities. It's hard to get into the market with a $50 million deal. That's why I said 100. You almost have to have 100 just to get the market's attention. So if the 50 million and less, they're going to have a hard time entering the market if tax exempt goes away because the competition is just going to be too great. So if it goes away, I think our loan demand is going to go up, right? Because we will be the only access in town basically for our lower borrowers. So keep that in mind. And then we also included, there's some stats nationally from Harris School of Public Policy, specific to Arizona, that gives you some historical perspective on what tax exempt financing has done for our state. So if we go to the next slide. So the mechanics are this. If we issue bonds, and let's say we issued $100 million in July of 25, what we would do is we take that $100 million and we'd reimburse ourselves for prior disbursements. And we can reimburse ourselves up to 2 years of previous disbursements. So that would cause our fund balance to go up, okay? So then the fund balance would earn interest. So in the short run, between July of 25 versus July of 26, when we anticipated selling bonds, the interest we would spend on debt almost equals the same as the interest we earn on those bonds. So there's really not a huge impact to us from that perspective. However, if you think as a board we wouldn't have to issue bonds in July of 2026 because loan demand's not going to go up and we might be able to squeak through it, or we want to put some controls over the kind of loans that we award, then we're looking at issuing debt versus not issuing debt, and there is an impact to that. However, if the tax exempt financing is eliminated and we don't optimize this or take advantage of this opportunity, then we would be forced, and loan demand does go up, and we have to issue taxable debt, then we're going to be putting a higher interest rate on our borrowers. So it's almost a missed opportunity from our borrowers' perspective if we don't take advantage of this opportunity. So that's where we're kind of weighing everything. Those are the pros and cons. A couple of other just little things here. We did issue debt last year, as you know. We're well positioned. We went through a dress rehearsal, so we could probably put together a deal pretty good. But we would really, if we wanted to issue debt, we would want to hit the market in July because we think that's when the market's the best for us, which means we would have to start in April. Now, we can pull a deal all the way to the last minute, but we would be paying for issuance cost. So if we pulled it at the last minute because tax exempt financing was safe, we could have sunk costs that we paid our financial advisors and our bond counsel. So we do have some flexibility there. So those are kind of the pros and cons of where we're at right now. So if we go to the next slide, as I said, I think we've gotten through the earlier hurdles. Now we're facing this tax exemption. I've talked to the industry. There is a feeling that tax exemption is safe because it's going to hurt the little guys, and so they think that that will be protected. But it is, it's a crystal ball, and we don't know. We also heard that advance refunding would be safe, and advance refunding went away at the last minute. So I'm trying to weigh those two options here, and we will continue to monitor that over the next month. But it is possible that we'll be coming to the board in April with a resolution, just in case. It's still a possibility. But we'd definitely like to get your thoughts. And as I said, I do have Bill from Piper here, so we're here to answer any questions.
Online, Mr. Beckham has his hand raised. David, please.
Yes, Denise, you piqued my interest when you said one thing in particular. And that is that if we issue bonds, the rate that we would pay today is clearly on a tax exempt basis. And then we would earn on that cash virtually the same thing. Clearly, that's on a taxable basis, but I guess we don't pay tax. So for us, if we have the money, we're not net outflow very much money, correct? Is that
In
what
the
you said?
In the short run, that is correct. Now, in the long run, obviously, if you compare issuing debt versus not issuing debt, in the long run,
course.
there would be the cost of issuing that debt.
Yeah,
And if
because
we're
as we,
talking
as
about-
we, because we, well, now let's think that through. If we expended that money on loans, then we're back to even. Why would that occur? Just,
So I think if we're looking at comparing accelerating a sale of bonds or accelerating a bond issuance, I don't think I think WIFA does not get hurt financially because the interest earned offsets the interest we pay. However, if we do a comparison of whether we sell debt or not sell debt, because the board thinks we will not have to sell debt in the future, then there is an impact if we sell debt.
sure.
Ted?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of clarifying questions here. And Denise, I'm very sympathetic to what you had to say. This is a tough one and changing your mind every day. And really this question of whether or not tax exempt financing will be eliminated as part of the extension of the Tax and Jobs Act is binary. You know, it'll happen or it won't. So there's not probabilities. It's binary, and it's really tough to make a decision. But as you said, if we want to hedge against that possibility, we really need to get started right away. But I think an important point that you made that I don't want to overlook is that even if the staff comes to the board in April and says we need to get going on this bond issuance, we still have between when we get started and when we would get done in July to make a go, no go decision. There might be some transaction costs that might be incurred to do that. And I would be hopeful that we would have more clarity as time went on about whether or not this elimination was going to take place as part of whatever the next legislative package that goes through Congress looks like over time. So that's just a statement. A question, though, that I have, and this is really a nit as far as making the decision to do it or not. And you said that at least as of right now, if we do a bond issuance in 2025, the amount of interest that we'd have to pay for doing that a year early versus the amount of interest that we would earn would be about an offset. So I always have questions about arbitrage and whether or not, you know, it would be probably smallish or almost non-existent, but at least probably ought to be mentioned on the cons list of if it doesn't happen and we go borrow this money and if we are on the lower side of disbursements, we could find ourselves with a sizable balance that we're earning, particularly with the way the rest of the economy is going and interest rates remaining higher for a longer time. Are we going to have an arbitrage expense that we ought to forecast?
That's a very good point. And if in April, the other thing is interest rates are changing a lot recently. We're almost at 4% right now for a 20-year AAA bond, which is pretty high. So we will do those that number crunching for you in April when we bring that resolution so that it's pretty clear where we are at that moment in time. It's just changing so much the last couple of weeks. I decided to wait to see if it settles down a little bit. I'm hoping it settles down a little bit.
Ted, are you good?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Tim?
Thank you, Chair. One comment and one question. As far as cash going out, I don't know what our customer base is feeling as far as impacts from tariffs and non-tariffs. I mean, depending on the status of tariffs, costs can be escalating pretty quickly. So there could be increased demand for cash flow out. I don't know what the lag on that would be, but that's just another factor to just throw in there that we could see drawdowns impacted by that potentially. The question is, are we still in the window where our transaction costs would be relatively low because we recently did a refunding. A lot of the pre-work is still fresh, and bond ratings are good for a certain period of time, things of that nature. Do we think that going in as soon as this summer, we'd have a sizable savings because of the proximity of the debt issuance?
I mean, I think, yes, I think to a certain extent that is very true. But there's still ratings that you have to get. There's still, presentation materials you have to put together. So to a certain extent, we would still have issuance costs, but I do think they would be at the lower end of the scale. So both of your points are very true.
Thank you, Tim. Sue, were you thinking of anything?
I wish I could predict the future. That was the
Yeah,
only thing
yeah.
I was thinking, Chairman.
All right.
I miss Pete. Keep waiting for him.
Where's Pete?
We're desperately trying to get Pete.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
Denise, the way you explained this, though, it almost seems like the damage would be minimal if we went ahead and pulled the trigger, and the advantage it would give to our borrowers would be worth it, and it's the little guy that gets hurt, and so without I guess further understanding this, it almost seems like we ought to at least explore ahead, and because if we can help the little guys, that's what I'm for, that by being aggressive. And that's a statement, that's not a question. But as you explained it, it seems like the pitfall is, yes, there's risk. That's what you do, is you always manage risk. But if it's minimal, and like Tim said, you've been in the market, so a lot of the information is still relevant. So if you went ahead and put a package together, it seems like the exposure's pretty minimal. That's just my thoughts.
One thing we did do is keep in mind our existing debt is paid off in 2027. So we will have no debt at that point in time. So financially, we're well positioned to issue $100 million and keep our AAA rating. I'm very confident in that.
Denise, do you think we should hear from?
Yeah, Bill, do you want to come up and add your thoughts?
Further insight?
Just make sure the light on that is green, and then introduce yourself for the record, please.
Good morning. And my name is Bill Davis from Piper Sandler, Chairman of the board. I think the discussion started with Denise described is exactly.
Can you pause for 1 second? Can you check your microphone?
Chair, yeah, we're just hearing him
There, it's on now.
through the room.
You mind starting over?
Absolutely. Good morning. Again, my name is Bill Davis. I'm with firm of Piper Sandler, and we serve as financial advisor to the Water Infrastructure Finance Authority. Denise's description and discussion is just right on point. I think a couple just highlights. We find ourselves in a situation where we don't know what's going to happen with regards to not only your loan draws, but the potential for the elimination of tax exemption. It's clear that sometime within the next 12 to 18 months, if nothing happens, WIFA will be in a situation where you'll need to borrow to meet loan demand. So really the risk right now, if you do borrow, and WIFA's in a great position because the way the the model has been set up, when you borrow, you can look back 3 years and reimburse yourself for loans that have been made with WIFA cash. So not the federal cap grants, but WIFA cash. And that number is going to be, north of 50 million, probably closer to 200 million, given that 3-year look back. And under federal tax law, when you reimburse yourself, the money is deemed spent, so you don't have any rebate on potential positive arbitrage. So that's a huge plus. So ultimately what happens when you borrow, those dollars are gonna be invested for you, as Denise mentioned, at the state treasurer's office. And anything you can earn there, you keep. The biggest risk is that when we sell bonds, we're gonna lock that rate. And we're gonna lock it for 15 or 20 years. When it's invested at the treasurer's office, it's a variable rate asset. See what I'm saying? Today, there's a great match off, but the biggest risk is if we sell bonds and then interest rates fall quickly. Okay, so we borrowed at 4, now we're earning 2, so that's, that's where the expense could potentially come in. Now, the flip side could happen too, but that's the risk. And then normally what happens then after we sell bonds over the course of a year or 2, that fixed rate liability turns into a loan, which is then a fixed rate asset, right? And to date, WIFA has been able to manage that fairly close. You subsidize the loans as much as you can. You have the federal cap grants, which help. And so, really our loan portfolio yield has been slightly lower than our actual leverage cost of funds. But as you know, over time, the retained earnings, if you will, from your annual audits continues to grow. So that's real positive because at the end of the day, we are a bond bank, basically, and banks, they borrow money, they leverage that money, and they make loans, and that's exactly what we do. So where we are today, I think, is just, and to Denise's credit, trying to position ourselves so that we're ready in the event that this potential tax exemption is taken away. Because if you are able to borrow, if you think about it, 100 million on a tax exempt basis, and that tax exemption goes away for all your borrowers, you're going to have that purse of money at a really low rate. So your subsidy, your level of subsidy will be huge compared to what those same borrowers could get in the taxable market on their own. Or even from WIFA, down the road, 10 years when you're having to borrow taxable and then lend taxable. So I guess that's about all I have to say, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? All right. So Denise, you'll keep us posted next month,
Yes, I will.
and we have the opportunity to think about it for another 30 days. So
Absolutely.
please think on it.
Maybe the ball will move.
Maybe. All right, we're going to go to the regular agenda. Members of the public wishing to speak on regular agenda item may request to speak prior to the chairman opening discussion on that item. For instructions on how to submit a speaker's card, please refer to the notes on the proceeding of today's meeting agenda. We're going to go to agenda item number 6, consideration of loan resolution 2025-046, the town of Oro Valley, and Scott will lead the discussion.
Mr. Chairman, if I could.
Yes.
I do need to announce my departure.
Thank you very much, Karen. Good luck with the EPA.
Thank you.
I'd stay here.
Or should I say, have fun with the EPA? All right.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The town of Oro Valley is requesting just over $12 million to support the construction of a booster station and 7 miles of water transmission main, including a capacity booster station as part of their portion of the Northwest Recharge Recovery and Delivery System undertaken in conjunction with the town of Marana and the Metropolitan DeWitt. These improvements are expected to deliver an additional 4,000 acre-feet a year of recovered cap water, enhancing the overall water supply of Oro Valley. The town has also received a water conservation grant fund award of nearly $1.7 million for this project, and it is noted that the proceeds of the proposed loan cannot be used to meet the 25% match requirement of the Water Conservation Grant Fund assistance. The town is in a strong financial position, and their water utility bonds are AA rated, which by statute can be relied upon for evidence of financial capability. Applying WIFA procedure 3.20, staff recommends $1,012,500 in forgivable principal for this larger drinking water project. Representing the town today is Peter Abraham, the Water Utility Director, and Julian Johnson, the Vice President from Stiefel, their bond advisor. The project manager is Michael Vidare, and the loan officer is Anthony Nagara. The FBC recommended board approval of Resolution 2025-046. Thank you.
Thank you. Do members of the board have any questions for Scott? Have we received any requests for public comment?
We have not, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Any additional board discussion? May we have a motion on agenda item number 6 for loan resolution 2025-046?
Mr. Chair, this is Tim. I would move to approve.
Do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
Ted Cook, second.
Okay. Any other board member discussion? With no further discussion, we will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Any abstentions? If none, the motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, Scott will continue the discussion. Consideration of loan resolution addendum A 2025-076, City of Prescott.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The City of Prescott is requesting board to amend loan resolution 2025-037 to extend the loan amortization period from 20 years to 25 years to allow, for 20 to 25 years and allow the first principal payment to be due on July 1st, 2026. The term extension is to accommodate the city's multi-year capital improvement plan. The annual payment will change from roughly $730,000 down to $660,000, and the debt service coverage will improve from about 1.5 to 1.82 to 1.6 to 1.95. The change of the initial payment of July 1, 2026 will provide the city time to actually start dispersing the money before a principal payment is required, which is why they're making that request. We do have representatives of the borrower online, Carrie Oberheim, the Financial and Business Operations Manager, Lars Johnson, the Deputy Finance Director, and Tim Sherwood, the Capital Programs Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Do we have any questions for Scott from the board? Have we received any requests for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Any additional board discussion? May we have a motion on agenda item number 7 for loan resolution addendum A 2025-076?
Mr. Chair, this is Tim. I would move to approve.
Thank you, Tim. Do we have a second?
Mr. Chair, Ted Cook, second.
Ted? Tim and Ted today.
Hey, they're just beating us to the punch, that's all.
Yes, wake up, Dave. No, just kidding.
I'm here, just can't hit
All right.
unmute fast.
Do we have any additional board member discussion? All right, with no further discussion, we will call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? If none, the motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 8, consideration of grant resolution addendum A 2025-077, Buckeye Water Conservation and Drainage District, WC 1-004-2023, and Lindsay will lead the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the next several items will be related to the Water Conservation Grant Fund. For the first item, agenda item 8, we can go to the next slide here. We have the Buckeye Water Conservation and Drainage District. They are requesting a modification to the scope, for their irrigation district modernization and water storage program, which is funded by the Conservation Grant Fund. This request is due to difficulties with the timeline and funding on a different grant program that was co-funding their project. The district is proposing to pivot the scope to urgent repairs and modernization of the existing structure without full replacement. The proposed alternative would remove the canal spanning solar panels and the Rubicon gate and SCADA controls from the scope and we reduce the proposed 600 lineal feet of canal lining to 200 to 400 lineal feet. This proposed alternative water savings that the applicant is estimating would reduce the water savings by approximately 1,000 to 2,000 acre feet per year. Upon review, staff did determine that the resolution addendum would be appropriate to clarify the scope of work that is allowable. Our analysis indicated the requested modifications would not significantly alter the water savings contemplated in the conservation grant application, and the grant resolution included in the board materials provides more details on their original scope of work approved and the modifications requested. Additionally, we should have Noel Carter, the district general manager, available, and the board has any questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. Does the board have any questions for Lindsay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Susan Montgomery. Just in reading this, I saw different estimates of water savings, and then I was trying to figure out what's the difference in, how do I say this? The loss in water savings with this amendment. And I thought I read it, but then now I'm a little unsure.
And it does get complicated because they estimate the total program will have a reduction in 1,000 to 2,000 acre feet per year because of this scope modification. But additionally, the overall project cost now is much reduced. When we calculate the overall water savings for WIFA's water conservation program, we base it on the WIFA attributed portion. So the WIFA attributed portion now is 100% for the overall program, instead of previously it was much lower, like 30 or 40% of the total. So
Thank you.
we actually get to claim more of the water savings. So for the WIFA attributed portion goes up, the overall goes down. Yes.
Thank you for asking that, Sue.
I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I was a little lost. I am now found.
Okay. It's not the easiest to, figure that one out.
That's hard. All right. Any additional questions from the board for Lindsay? Do we have any requests for public comment?
We do not, Mr. Chair.
All right. Any additional board discussion? And please don't let my previous comments about the Tim and Ted show dissuade Tim and Ted from continuing.
Yeah, I already unmuted.
Okay. All right. Can we have a motion?
I'm already turned on because
Yeah, so,
I would so move.
Dave, go ahead.
and I get the second. See the.
All right.
Right there.
We have a motion and a second. All right. Any additional board member discussion? With no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item number 7, Lindsay, you're still up. Consideration of grant application WC 4-194-2024, Town of Oro Valley, $3 million. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. And just to correct, it is agenda item 9A, and then we additionally have
yes.
agenda item 9B. If you'll permit me, I'll present the two at the same time right now.
Can we entertain a motion on both after, Joe? Or do they need to be considered separately?
You certainly could, Joe Satelli, General Counsel, you certainly could issue or entertain a motion on both of these
Okay.
together.
Thank you for the clarification.
So thank you very much. So we are presenting the two applications for Oro Valley and the town of Marana, which were partially funded under the Water Conservation Grant Fund. They are still partially funded, even though at the previous June and December board meetings, the board considered the reallocation of certain conservation monies and determined to divide the funds equally between these two applicants. For that reason, we have added them back onto the agenda for you to consider, as we now have $298,835 that has become available due to two grantees declining their awards under the current $200 million that we have awarded. So we have some additional funds available. We have added these two projects for consideration if the board would like to divide the remaining funds between them equally, or to determine what to do with the remaining funds. So I'm happy to get into more details. This is related to the Northwest Recharge Recovery and Delivery System projects that they both have going, but it is the same action that we're considering that happened in December. So any questions for me?
Any questions from the board for Lindsay?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Yes, I have a question, but it's actually not exactly about this. It's about the fact that these two prior applicants have declined the funding. And I'm trying to understand just why they declined the funding. And just trying to see, are we going to forecast more of these as we get up to the ARPA dates? And that was my question, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you.
I definitely appreciate the question, and I wish I could tell you for certain that this was the last time this is gonna happen. The reasons are varied. There's, procurement issues, there's timeline issues, there's bandwidth of staff to complete the projects, is the main issues that we're kind of hearing. As of right now, we don't anticipate any other, de-obligations of grant funds, but it is possible. So, and the timeline is quickly approaching to spend these monies, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any requests for public comment?
No, Mr. Chair, we do not.
All right, any additional board discussion? Do you want to take them separately or together from the board? Together. All right. Can we have a motion on agenda item 9A, grant application WC 4-194-2024, and 9B, WC 5-214-2024?
Mr. Chair, this is Tim. I think it's my turn again, and I won't
Okay.
be happy.
All right, we have a motion.
Ted Cook, second.
We have a second. All right. Any additional board member discussion?
Just a question for clarification, again, Joe Stelly, General Counsel, the motion to split between the two, or what is the specific motion for the allocation of funding?
Yes, as recommended to split between the two.
Great.
Correct.
Thank you, Tim.
No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, motion passes for both. Agenda item 10A, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-025, Town of Chino Valley, Water Supply Development, WSD-003-2024, $2 million. Lindsay?
Thank you, sir, and I'll actually turn my time for this one over to Scott Connolly, since it has the loan component.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Mr. Chairman. The town of Chino Valley on this project involves the design of a new groundwater well, storage tank, booster station, and transmission main to help mitigate the impact of PFAS contamination and provide a new source of water for the town. The design will be followed by construction of the new water production facility with a final estimated cost of around $10.7 million. Once completed, the project will provide resiliency and capacity to provide PFAS-free water to the town's water system and sufficient capacity to provide water to private water companies within Chino Valley if needed. The town is requesting $2 million from WIFA to fund the design and engineering of this project. It received a financial assistance score of 80%, which qualifies them as a priority community, and under WIFA's water supply development procedure 2.18.1 qualifies them for financial assistance in the form of 60% grant and 40% loan. The town currently has 5 WIFA loans, and with maturities ranging from 2026 to 2037. These loans are all secured by a pledge of system revenue and excise taxes. Currently, system revenue is not sufficient on its own to meet the debt coverage requirement for the loan. However, the additional support of the excise tax pledge does allow them to exceed these requirements and also keeps the proposed loan pledge on parity with the current existing WIFA loans. The total financial assistance would be 1.2 million loan and 800,000 in grant. The proposed loan would carry a 1.952% interest rate with no payments for 3 years and then a 20-year amortization until maturity. We do have representatives available online, and the Water Supply Development Committee did recommend approval of Resolution 2025-025. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Lindsay. Do we have any questions for Scott from the board?
I just have a comment.
Okay, David?
Yeah, and that is, I'm glad to see that a water supply development fund applicant is actually 60% loan, 40% grant, not 100% grant. And just a comment there coming up, because we have, of course, all but one of the others are 100% grant, and free money without even any participation at all leads to I think bad consequences. But we've had that conversation a bit. But I support this one, frankly, because I like the ratio.
Thank you, David, for pointing that out. Do we have any additional questions or comments from the board for Scott? Have we received any requests for public comment?
We have received 2 requests, Mr. Chairman. So I will call on the first. It looks like she is virtual, and that will be Emeka. And I believe I have unmuted your mic, so all you will need to do then is, wait, I might have unmuted the wrong mic. Nope, that's the right one. So I've unmuted your mic. If you do have your comment, you're welcome to unmute your mic and give us a 3-minute comment. Okay, don't see them. And then it looks like there's another person in person. So we will call Mike Krebs up to give your comments, and then hopefully we can bring Anaya on after that. Mike, are you in the room?
I am, but I was going to comment on.
Oh, 10E. Okay. That
Okay.
sounds good. No problem.
So we
So
have
then we do not.
no comments. Okay. Any additional board discussion? May we have a motion on 10A for Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-025?
David Beckham, so moved.
Thank you, David. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Buchanan. Any additional board member discussion? With no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 10B, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-057, Elfrida Water Improvement District, WSD-026-2025, the amount of $1,984,975, and Lindsay will lead the discussion.
Thank you, sir. So the Elfrida Water Improvement District is requesting just under $2 million to make necessary improvements to their small system, which is in the Douglas AMA. They plan to drill 2 new wells, rehab an existing well, add a chlorination system, add a water tank and a booster pump, and replace water lines. These projects will address several critical water supply challenges Elfrida faces, including declining water levels, aging infrastructure, and inadequate storage capacity. The water distribution system, which consists of aging asbestos cement pipe, is prone to frequent leaks and breaking, causing water loss and contamination risks. The project will decrease water loss, increase water supply reliability, and ensure safe drinking water for Elfrida. The district has 1 existing WIFA loan from 2018 for $85,000, which is in good standing. However, they have limited ability to take on new debt. We should have the project manager for this application is Michael Vidari, and the loan officer is Anthony Najira, and we should have the applicant representatives available for any questions.
Do we have any additional, or do we have any questions from the board for Lindsay? Okay, have we received any requests for public comment?
No, we have not, Mr. Chair.
Any board discussion?
Yeah.
One more time.
Yeah, this is David Beckham again.
Thank you, David.
And on all of these that are 100% grant, you know, I couldn't make it to the Water Supply Development Fund Committee meeting, as you all even know. But again, even our Water Conservation Grant Fund, we required some money from the applicants. This is 100%. And I just, as a matter of course, I know this is not the first time, I just don't like it. No contribution at all from the applicants. I'm not going to stand in the way of them today, but it's just something I think and we're going to hit our $60 million number here pretty soon, but 0 contributions bother me. That's all. That's just a comment.
Thank you, David. Sue.
Mr. Chairman, I would echo Mr. Beckham's comments. I would point out in this instance, though, Elfrida is a very small rural community. And so when we're thinking about grants and the needs for grants, in my mind, this is one that I would elevate, knowing what we know about Elfrida versus other, perhaps other more middle of the road ones that raise more questions. So thank you.
Sue, thank you for pointing that out. Appreciate that.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
Richard Lunt, and I certainly value Mr. Beckham's comments, but some of these communities, and Elfrida is one of them, without this, there will be no improvement. When this was set up, some of these funds were specifically allocated to help these smaller communities that without these funds would continue to waste water, have substandard systems. And so I certainly value Mr. Beckham's view, but I also understand the value of some of these funds going to these communities because they are trying to improve and they're working extremely hard. I know that the committee asked a lot of them, specifically me, when was their last rate increase, and every one of them had raised their rates. And so they are trying to do their part. So those are my comments. Thank you.
All great comments. Thank you very much, Richard. Any additional board discussion? May we have a motion on agenda item 10B for financial assistance resolution 2025-057?
Mr. Chairman, Sue Montgomery, so moved.
Thank
I
you,
would
Sue.
second Richard Lunt.
Richard, second. Any board member discussion? No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. That motion passes. Agenda item 10C, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-060. Heber Domestic Water Improvements District, WSD-039-2025. The amount is $1,997 and $1,997,106, and Lindsay will lead the discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the Heber DWID manages two separate public water systems. So this is one of two requests that they have for financial assistance through the Water Supply Fund. For this project, it is included for the consolidation of their Black Canyon subdivision system with the main Heber DWID system by installing water lines to connect the two. The goal is to improve reliability, create redundancy, and ensure both systems can support each other in cases of emergencies. The project will also include booster pump upgrades to ensure the consolidated system can meet current and future demand. The district has no existing debt and in 2024 had a loss of net revenue, and therefore staff analysis indicated the district does not have the capacity to take on additional debt without an adjustment in revenues or ongoing expenses. We had the project manager for this project was Lindsay Mills and the loan officer Anthony Najira, and we should have applicant representatives available for any questions.
Do you have any questions from the board? Comments? Do we have any requests for public comment?
No, we do not, Mr. Chair.
All right, we'll bring it back to the board for last discussion and a motion for agenda item 10C.
Mr. Chairman, Sue Montgomery, motion item 10C, please.
Thank you, Sue.
Can you just clarify to have your mic on and just to approve the resolution? Yeah, thank you.
Motion on agenda item 10C for our financial assistance resolution 2025-060.
I will second that, Richard Lunt.
Thank you, Richard. Any additional board member discussion? No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Agenda item 10D, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-061, Heber Domestic Water Improvement District, WSD-038-2025 for $2 million. Lindsay.
Thank you, sir. So this is the second request as noted for the Heber DWID, and this request is involving the construction of a storage tank and upgrades of the automation controls for their main water system. They plan to do this project to address the deteriorating condition of the existing infrastructure, particularly the tower tank, which is in critical state and close to failure. It poses a catastrophic risk for service interruptions and compromising the overall system resilience. As indicated on the previous application, Heber DWID currently holds no long-term debt and really has limited capacity to take on additional debt. And therefore, it is eligible to receive up to $2 million grants. We have the same project manager and loan officer assigned to this, and the applicant representatives available for any questions.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Do we have any questions, comments from the board? Do we have any requests for public comment?
No, we do not, Mr. Chair.
All right, back to the board for last consideration, questions, and a motion.
Mr. Chairman, Sue Montgomery, motion to approve.
Thank you, Sue. Do we have a second?
Richard Lund, I will second that.
Richard, thank you. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Item 10E, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-062, Tri-City Regional Sanitary District, WSD-009-2025, $5 million. Lindsay, take it away.
Thank you, sir, and I will turn my time over to Scott Connolly again, as this one has a loan component.
Thank you, Scott.
Thanks to both of you. Tri-City Regional Sanitary District was established in 2011 with the formation and mission to improve the quality of life in an unincorporated area encompassing about 5.5 square miles in southern Gila County, bordered on the east side by the city of Globe and on the west by the town of Miami. Nearly 90% of the residential properties within the district are on-site treatment systems comprised of cesspools or substandard septic tanks. Both are in violation of several federal and state laws and regulations. Tri-City's large project was divided into 3 phases per the recommendation of the USDA. Currently, the total project is priced at $112 million, with $49 million in phase 1, $33 million in phase 2, and $30 million in phase 3. The district has received a letter of condition, which is a financial commitment from the USDA for phase 1 costs, but does not have a letter of condition for phase 2 or phase 3, as the USDA must approve phase 1 bidding before phase 2 or phase 3 letters can be provided. With phase 1 bidding awaiting approval or near approval, the district is requesting $5 million in financial assistance, $2 million in grant, $3 million in loan from the Water Supply Development Fund for phase 2 costs. Pursuant to WIFA policy and procedure, this project qualifies for a 60% loan and 40% grant. The district has historical revenue through ad valorem tax assessments to cover administration costs, budget overrides, and special district needs. If the district is unable to secure funding from the USDA, the projected performance indicate they will not meet the requirements of a loan. However, the operator has the ability to adjust the ad valorem taxes to cover the operating costs and ensure the system remains operational. Additionally, by the time the first payment is due under the Water Supply Development Loan, which requires no principal or interest for 36 months, the district should have phase 1 connected and returning revenue from its customers. To date, WIFA funding for the district amounts to a total of $10,568,000, comprised of a $3 million grant from the Water Conservation Grant Fund, $2,068,000 and 100% forgivable principal from an SRF loan for phase 1 construction, and $5.5 million from a SRF design loan, which was repaid in June of 2024. The district has obtained additional funding for phase 2 of approximately $10 million from several sources. The project manager is Lindsay Mills. The loan officer is Channing Lester. And the Water Supply Development Committee recommended approval of this resolution 2025-062. In the audience today, I do see that we have Mike Krebs, the Pace Engineering, and also Tim Stratton, who represents the legal side of their projects, their attorney. So with that, I will open up to any questions for me or for the representatives.
Any questions from the board?
Mr.
Comments? Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just had a comment. This is a really important project, and it's an ambitious project to put this together and braid these fundings together. And I just want to commend Tri-City for this, because it's a lot to do, and part of me would be concerned about all of the pieces that have to happen. But this is exactly what you have to do in a community like this to put such a project together. So I just wanted to say that, Mr. Chairman, that I would commend them for their efforts, and I think this is a good project for WIFA, so.
Thank you. We've received one request for public comment.
We have it is from the applicant, Mr. Krebs, so you're
Okay, Mr. Krebs?
welcome to come up. Just make sure the little light is green at the top. So you may need to press the button at the top. There we go.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you. My name is Mike Krebs, and I'm a vice president with PACE. We're a water resources consulting engineer, and been working in Arizona since 2006, actually 2004, and our focus has really been on rural communities. And it's been such a great blessing. One, I grew up in Kentucky, so I've gotten to know Arizona very well. So that's been a great blessing. But just to be out there with all the rural communities and see what they're facing, and they don't have the money, as you said, before. And Tri-City is like that. We've been on that project since 2012, working with them, and just multiple challenges trying to get to where we are today. And I think Scott did a great job talking about the project. 1,600 cesspool is what the estimates are out there right now. That's residential and businesses. And numerous abandoned homes. At one time, the county thought there might be in excess of 300 of them. This system is so important to that area, unincorporated area. The project includes about 150,000 linear feet of pipe, a 500,000 gallon a day facility, numerous lift stations in the area. And as Scott said, the project cost from 2019 to today has gone from 70 million to 112 million. And with the way things have gone with USDA has usually been, we're there, we've got all the money you need, we'll help you get the project done. But they've asked the district to find additional grant funding because they may not have funding available as far as grants. Currently, the area and the district has gone out and completed an assessment project in 2019, which maxed the loan amount out, the debt amount for the district at 32 million. So if the cost of the project is 112, that means we need about $80 million of grants to complete the project. Or we have to go back to the public and say, oh, hey, you want more debt? Who wants more debt? No, nobody. So it would be a huge challenge to this project. And then just to tell you today the status, the construction documents have been assembled for phase 1, and they are at USDA right now. They've done their initial review, and we've received some minor comments. We're responding to those. So we hope to be out to bid within the next 30, 45 days at max for phase 1. And there's 2 bids. One is the main collection system, which is in the Claypool area. The other is getting that line to the treatment plant and the treatment plant site, which we are grateful to WIFA for funding that portion of it, about $5 million.
Can you wrap it up?
And
That's the 3
yes.
minutes. Can you?
Oh, sorry. Okay. So then what this will do today is get us moving on phase 2. And reason that we're very anxious about that is because we have been trying to secure grant funding from the Corps, from CDS, from EDA, from Water Conservation. And we have about 14, 15 million of the 33 that we need. So this will really help us get that moving forward. So I just wanted to say on behalf of the board, thank you very much for your support of the project. And obviously all these different fundings provide additional challenges because they all have little parts and pieces and strings attached to them. So it's been fun. Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Do any members of the board have any questions for Scott or the applicant? All right. We will bring it back for a motion on agenda item 10E for financial assistance resolution 2025-062.
Mr. Chairman, Sue Montgomery, motion to approve.
Mr. Chair, this is Tim. I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. We have a motion and a second. Any additional board member discussion? No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion passes. Agenda item 10F, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-059, Wendon Domestic Water Improvement District, WSD-054-2025, in the amount of $101,062. Lindsay.
Sir. So the Wendon WID is requesting just over $100,000 to install a water filling station where customers who rely on water hauling in the McMullen Valley can access water 24/7 with the use of a credit card or field access card. This would allow for significantly increased access to water and would ensure that the Wendon WID is compensated for supplying that water. If the request was a loan, the system revenues could support the debt service required. However, WIFA staff acknowledges that the financial assistance amount is minimal at just over $101,000. The project manager for this was Lindsay Mills and the loan officer was Channing Lester. The Water Supply Development Committee did recommend approval of this application, and we should have the applicant representative for any questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. Do we have any board questions for Lindsay? Have we received any requests for public comment?
No, sir.
All right. Once more back to the board for discussion or questions. Hearing none, may we have a motion on agenda item 10G, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-056.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve Resolution 2025-059 for the Wendon Domestic Water Improvement District.
Thank you very much, Buck. Do we have a second?
Richard Lunt, I will second that.
Thank you, Richard. We have a motion and a second. One more time to the board. Any additional discussion? No further discussion. We'll call for the vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Agenda item 10H, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-055, Town of Camp Verde.
Yep. So did we skip on your? Yes.
Oh, I skipped. I apologize. I was writing on the wrong line. Thank you. 10G, Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-056, Town of Duncan, Water Supply Development -045-2025 for the amount of $1,729,640. Lindsay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the town of Duncan is requesting just over $1.7 million for their project to address critical issues for one of their two public water systems, the Hunter Estates water system, which has outdated and corroded infrastructure. The project components include replacing 2,300 feet of water line, installing 50 valves, and connecting the Hunter Estates system to the Duncan Central system with 11,000 feet of water line. The goal is to reduce water loss, improve efficiency, and ensure a reliable long-term water supply. Past events have raised some managerial and financial concerns as noted in the due diligence. However, staff acknowledges the town has been working hard to address those issues, and the hiring of the permanent town manager and staff has improved their situation. Duncan has received funding in the amount of $77,000 from the Water Supply Fund for the purchase of equipment to do water line replacements, and has also received just over $370,000 from the Conservation Grant Fund for water line replacements and the addition of a SCADA system. At this time, the town of Duncan does not have the capacity to take on additional debt without an adjustment in revenues or ongoing expenses. The project manager was Michael Vidari and loan officer was Evan Marsh. The Water Supply Committee did recommend approval for this application, and we should have applicant representatives for any questions. Thank you, sir.
Board questions for Lindsay? Have we received any requests for public comment?
We have not, Mr. Chairman.
All right, back to the board. Any additional discussion? And if not, I would entertain a motion on agenda item 10G for Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-056.
Mr. Chair, Richard Lunt, I would so move.
Thank you, Richard. We have a motion. We have a second.
Mr. Chair, Ted Cook, second.
Ted, we have a motion and a second. Back to the board. Any additional discussion? No further discussion. We'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion passes. Thank you. Financial Assistance Resolution, item 10H, 2025-055, Town of Camp Verde. WSD 050 $2025, $2 million. Lindsay.
Thank you. So the Camp Verde is requesting $2 million for the installation of 2 new storage tanks, booster pumps, electric power, backup generator, and a 12-inch looped water main. The project addresses the town's water storage deficiencies, which currently limits capacity to less than half a day's demand. The town of Camp Verde has an existing SRF loan and an approved water supply project for $2 million grant and $1.6 million loan component that shares a pledge of the water system revenues. Including this as a loan along with the other existing debt results in a drop of the debt service coverage from 1.34 times to 1.06 times in 2024. Additionally, the town has approved a multi-year rate increase in November of 2023 to fund future investments in drinking water solutions. The project manager for this application was Morgan Burgess. The loan officer was Anthony Najira, and the Water Supply Development Committee did recommend approval of this application.
Thank you, Lindsay. Any questions or comments from the board for Lindsay? All right, have we received any requests for public comment?
We have not, Mr. Chair.
All right, back to the board. May we have a motion on agenda item 10H for financial assistance resolution 2025-055?
Mr. Chair, Richard Lunt, I would so move.
I'll second.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Buck. We have a motion and a second
Second.
and a third.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'll fourth it too.
I can fit this. Never got this one.
Well, we seem to be almost unanimous. Back to the board, and if there's no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you. The motion passes. Financial Assistance Resolution 2025-058, the Town of Jerome. And that's Water Supply Development -040-2025. The amount is $1,551,043. Lindsay?
Thank you, sir. So this will be the last one on your regular agenda for today. The Town of Jerome is requesting just over the $1.5 million to repair crucial segments of their water system. The proposed improvements include approximately 1,800 linear feet of water lines that are deteriorating that the town needs to replace. The Town of Jerome has no existing debt and in 2024 had a loss of net revenues. If this request was a loan, the annual debt service would exceed the revenue available, and therefore staff analysis indicates Jerome does not have the capacity to take on additional debt at this time without adjustments in revenues or ongoing expenses. The project manager for this was Morgan Burgess, and the loan officer was Channing Lester. It's also noted here the Town of Jerome received a water supply grant in December for $1.4 million for their Mescal Siphon and School Street Regulator project. And then the Water Supply Committee met and did recommend approval on this application.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. Any questions or comments from the board? Have we received any requests for public comment?
We have not, Mr. Chair.
All right, back to the board. And if there's no discussion, may we have a motion on agenda item 10I for financial assistance resolution 2025-058?
Mr. Chair, Richard Lunt, I would so move.
Thank you, Richard.
Therese Horseman, I will second that.
All right, Therese. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any additional board member discussion? With no further discussion, we'll call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any
Aye.
opposed? Thank you, Tim, for getting that in there. Any opposed? Any abstentions? If not, the motion passes. That was the marathon. Thank you.
You handled it very well.
Appreciate that. You know, most of the work goes on behind the scenes, and just want to recognize staff's preparation as well as the board members participating and being prepared to vote on these when we bring it to our monthly board meeting. That's where the real work has happened. At this time, we'll go to agenda item number 11, call to the public. Oh, yes.
Before we leave, before we leave item number 10, and I think my comment applies also to items 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Okay.
And you were commending the preparation by board members and things like that. I'd also like to express my appreciation for the staff, is that when you notice not a lot of board member questions and things like that, is that the staff has really stepped up to listen to what our questions have been and anticipate those, and basically do a better job of explaining and answering the questions that we are likely to ask as they learn from this exchange that goes on. So that's why this is happening. It's not because we're not paying attention or anything like that. The staff is working hard with the applicants to get the necessary information into the documents they send out in advance for us to look at, and we're doing a good job of looking at them and understanding those things and getting other questions asked before we sit down and take these votes for large amounts of money.
I would say the staff has learned to anticipate the concerns of every board member,
Even mine.
even yours, and especially Tim's, and sometimes David's. No.
Mr.
I'm not
Chairman?
picking on you, David.
Also, you know, in these committee meetings, I know there was a lot of discussion, and some of the points that the other board members have brought up those concerns have been expressed, and we're a committee, we all have different opinions, but I have to agree with Ted that staff does a fantastic job of putting all this information together, and yes, they do listen to us. You know, sometimes we each have our little particular things we want to see, and staff has been excellent in meeting those requirements. So I too would like to give accolades to our staff and other members of the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ted, and thank you, Richard, and thank you, Sue. Any other comments on that? If not, we'll go to agenda item number 11, call of the public. This is the time for any additional public comments. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. Have we received any requests for public comment?
Mr. Chair, we have not.
Okay. Agenda item number 12, agenda development. This is the opportunity for members to identify any topics that they would like to be placed on agenda at a future meeting.
So obviously, we will come back to you in April with an update on the financial status with any other information we know. Also, look out for your Friday emails. We try to link relevant information to those two, just to give you some background and some news, so that'll help you keep up to speed, just like we're trying to keep up to speed. I also do want to note for this board that in April, we will be bringing you, if all goes according to plan, 68 applications for $80 million in demand for $14 million in water conservation grant funds.
That's gonna be great.
So speaking of staff work and speaking of staff preparation, we are working very, very hard. We are very, very thankful that Amanda is on board to help us work through those applications. Please do anticipate that we will have a longer marathon meeting as we go through that. However, what we anticipate doing will be very similar to what you saw on the last round of conservation grant funds the first time around, where we bring you projects in 4 categories, unanimously approved by the committee, split approval by the committee, split rejection by the committee, unanimous rejection by the committee. So we will have them packaged that way to help you sort through them a little more quickly. However, it's going to be a lot. So just flagging that for everybody to understand. You will have a lot of materials to look through. Please let us know what we can do to help you do that as efficiently as possible.
And Director McGuire, when is the Conservation Committee meeting?
We just told the Conservation Committee to block out Tuesday, April 1st and Friday, April 4th. I anticipate we will need both of those days to do all of the work they'll have to do to work individually with applicants and talk about every single one of those applications individually. We anticipate that we will be breaking them up by category. So having a 3-hour block where we present all of the meters, a 1.5-hour block where we present all of the ag, that sort of thing, to also help them organize their thoughts and help our applicants prepare as well for when they need to be present in those meetings. So the 1st and the 4th of April, that right now will be when those meetings are held.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So, given the timing, we're going to have to make these decisions for the 14+ million in April.
That is correct.
And we're going to get unanimously recommend, whatever, split, no, whatever. The unanimously recommend, will the committee determine that that'll be just for the bucket that is the 14? Or will the committee be giving us more than 14 million
I see
worth,
what you're
and
saying.
then we're going to have to rank or prioritize those, and how will that work, in your view?
In my view, there is a possibility that the committee gives you more than 14 million in unanimously approved applications. Because the way that we asked them to do that last time was every individual committee member gave us their list of what they would spend the 14 million on. And then the committee voted on each of those applications. So it is possible that we'll have more than 14 million in recommended. There's a world where that doesn't happen, but I would be prepared for that, yes.
So then, Mr. Chairman?
Yes,
Thank you.
please.
So then, in terms of order on the agenda, will the order on the agenda be not project by project, but rather how does the committee or the board wish to rank the recommend? Because I don't want to be in, and I'm sure you wouldn't intend this, but I don't want to be in a situation that we have.
Because you were number 11 on the agenda.
Because you were 11.
That's right.
Or we did meters first, or whatnot.
Yep. So the order on the agenda would be first grouped into those buckets of unanimous recommend versus non. And what I think we would do is allow the board the opportunity, we could allow the board the opportunity for discussion before voting on any particular application. So that way there was an opportunity for you to say, we would like to, in our discretion, take the agenda in a particular order, and we're going to take this application first, this application second. So Joe can work with us on how we structure that, but we will ensure that we don't run into that possibility or that world where because you were number 11 and not number 10, you got in once all the money had been spent.
Thank you, Mr.
Joe, do you want to
Chairman.
add anything on that?
No, I think Director McGuire, you said exactly what I was going to say. It's your discretion to consider agenda items out of order. One thing we could possibly do is agendize an overarching topic for just sort of comments from individual board members to sort of say, I'm going to want to talk about this one before we move to any sort of votes. So we could put some type of agenda development to ensure that there's adequate time for comments so that you can still have an agenda that is ordered based on how the committee recommended that, but still provide the board obviously the flexibility to review all of those applications as a whole.
So what I'd like to see is a recommendation from each committee
Okay, that's,
by order for consideration prior to agendizing the meeting.
okay.
I was taught that all frustration comes from expectations, so let's define the expectations and try to meet them.
We can do that. Good times.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
in the project priority list application scoring, could we put the higher scoring first? I mean, that's another way, and the lower scoring applicants last. That's another way.
However the committee would like to do it, I would leave it
Yeah.
up to each committee.
Okay.
And then if they need additional guidance, they can get that from Chelsea or Joe. And then we can agendize.
And Mr. Lund, I'll also note that the project priority list doesn't exist for the conservation grant fund, right? Those are not scored based on a numerical score the way that we score water supply development. So, but coming up with something similar to that, as the chairman has recommended, that the committee give us a true ranking to help you organize your thoughts is something we can absolutely do.
I know that'll be a little bit more work, but I think it's paramount that we approach it like that.
Yep.
Any additional comments or questions or recommendations? Joe, you're kind of looking back there like, hey.
Looking forward to agenda
Oh,
development.
yeah. Wonderful. All right. It'll be a long meeting. Agenda item 13, next meeting, and that meeting will be Wednesday, April 16th, 2025, 9 a.m.
Pay your taxes and then come see us.
Oh.
It'll be a great week.
Well, at least I know part of it goes to a good purpose.
Or file your extension. All
There,
right.
there won't be any money left.
The time is 10:29 and we are adjourned. Thank you very much for being here, everybody.